welcome to another episode of ThinkTech Hawaii, Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen, and thank you for joining us for Likeable Science this week. Another lovely Friday afternoon here. We have a crowd here in the studio today. We have Wei Li, who is a systems analyst, works with smart trees, which we're going to find out more about today. We have Ben Chutaro, lead of the Board of Regents of the College of the Marshall Islands, among many other things, former Asian Development Bank consultant, lots of other good stuff he's done. And many of the ThinkTech viewers will recognize Ted Ralston from Where the Road Leads, or now I guess more Where the Drones Leads.
That is what it is, right.
So we're going to be talking today about water. And as viewers of this show will know, water is one of my favorite subjects. I do a project out throughout the region on helping people learn about water, using water to get all kinds of community members involved in learning, not just about water, but about science, because of course water has physics to it, water has chemistry, water ties to biology, hydrology, geology, oceanography, atmospheric science.
Culture and life.
Culture and life, exactly, history. So yeah, water really is a great uniting force, and of course there's a severe drought throughout much of the region. We feel bad here in Hawaii because it's been a little dry for us, but compared to what it's like out in the Marshalls now, and even worse out in Palau, it's we got nothing to worry about. But what we want to talk about really sort of specifically, at least to start with, is this idea of a rain garden. And that term gets tossed around some, but Wei, can you explain to us sort of why people need rain gardens and what rain gardens really are?
Well, rain garden is really not a new concept. It's been around for a long time. And what happened is when we have a lot of rain, and as our city is building up, we deal with the rain by collecting them, getting rid of them. And as the time goes and more impervious areas are being developed, this is becoming a problem. However, many people on the mainland and Hawaii start creating rain gardens. What this is a way for us to collect the rainwater, and instead of letting it run out into the street and say, get rid of it, we don't deal with it, the city take care of it, and it's out of my area and I'm done. Now we're encouraging people to keep it. A little ponding is not a bad thing. You are recharging the reservoir, you're recharging our water supply, rather than collect all the roof, dirt, driveway, oil, and then give it to somebody else to deal with.
Right, but the problem with big paved areas that just have drains connecting to larger drains is that it takes all this water and typically dumps it out somewhere directly out into a large river or the ocean.
Yes.
And that water never gets back into the soil where to the areas where it fell on. And so that soil eventually becomes depleted, aquifers drop, people who are pumping from that soil lose that. And so the idea of rain gardens is to make small points of recharge where paved areas can drain locally in a sort of natural way.
And not to mention all the toxin and chemicals, we concentrated them, collected them, and then put it in one place.
Right.
When we would all usually have it all spread out, everybody deal with it, but now this is really a problem for Kailua. And what happened is when Kailua was developed, a lot of the impervious surfaces are collected in the roadway, and they put it into Kawainui, where it used to be connected.
Tell people where Kainui is.
Kawainui is our famous marsh, a Ramsar marsh in Kailua, and which is connected to Hamakua Marsh. Together, they used to be the ocean, I guess, and then it turned into a marsh, and then Kailua took over and became Kailua. But the problem took place where we further made the problem more severe is by creating a dam. I think during the early 90s, we had a flood, a 100-year flood or rainstorm.
Are you from Kailua?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't, but I remember I was here in the 90s. Yeah.
Coconut Grove was flooded. So Army Corps came and very well intended put a dam there to protect Kailua. But in doing so, it divided the two marshes. And there was a spillway built, but it wasn't connected somehow. So now half of Kailua drains right into Hamakua Marsh, or to be exact, Kealupulu Stream. And that stream when it gets dirty, usually get flushed out into Kailua Bay. However, the city didn't really have the proper permit or whatever. The stream is plugged most of the time. So that means all the polluted water is kept in Hamakua Marsh. And when it rained, all the fish just float up to the top. And it's just terrible.
Well, I see that in where I'm living at in Hawaii Kai. So, you know, when it rains, you have that nice dark water. And my daughter's observes that, Dad, I want to go back to the Marshall Islands because the water's so much clearer. I don't want to jump in that.
Yes.
So you're dealing with an urbanization consequence, right? That's what we're speaking. And you're going to be seeing a lot of urbanization consequences as time goes on here as the Marshall Islands continue.
That's correct. I mean, you know, you're looking at the Marshall Islands is a big area as far as water, but very small land area. But what's going on in the Marshalls is migration, intra-migration and out-migration. And of course, urbanization is becoming a major issue for the Marshall Islands, particularly in the capital of Madrigal.
Right, they are building new buildings, they're paving over more of the area.
That's right.
And there's so little land area there to take the water in anyhow, that almost any building that drains and dumps its water out, you've lost something.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that extreme. I mean, we try to collect everything we can. I mean, every household has water catchments. You don't see that in Hawaii. I mean, my house, I mean, I have nearly 20,000 gallons of water that I collect from the roof, and, you know, things like the AC water.
So we can learn from you. Big time.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, no, I mean, it's just for practical reasons because of the lack of. And
Yeah, the Majuro water system is pressurized, what am I thinking, 6-8 hours a week now?
a couple hours a day.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the rest of the time it isn't, so it's.
And when I say couple hours a day, I mean that's once a week. So, and so each of the atoll gets, one section of the atoll will get water on Mondays. I get water on Wednesdays for 2.5 hours.
Please explain what does that mean? That's foreign to us.
Yeah, I mean, with water hours. So in order for us to have 24-hour water, we have to collect it. So that I think of it as a hybrid system. So we collect from the city water, we collect from the rainwater, and then we have our own pumps. So I could have water 24/7.
I see.
But we don't have 24/7 water.
Right.
So when I have my relatives coming from the U.S. coming to Madrid, I say, hey, in Marshallese we call it rebele, which is in Hawaii haole. Don't take rebele showers, please. Don't take haole showers. I mean, please, ease up on the water use. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize how completely spoiled we really are here in the U.S. We walk up to any tap in any building, you turn it on, you don't think twice that that's good water, you know it, no questions in your head. The water from the municipal system in Majuro, because it hasn't been pressurized, even when you get it, it's not necessarily clean. The system has been tapped into illegally by a lot of people, so their rainwater is drained into it, contaminating their nicely treated water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's difficult. It's a big challenge for the Marshall Islands. I mean, again, first flush systems, when we catch the water, we put filters from the catchments before it gets into anything else.
But this sort of ties back then to this idea of rain gardens. Again, as you build up more and more urban areas and you're paving over, putting roofs, putting sidewalks, putting roadways, parking lots, you're cutting down on the places where rain can infiltrate into the ground, and you need to design properly and have strips, sections, ponding, little areas where that water can run off, can sit on the ground and just sink into the ground in a more or less normal fashion.
Right. And then the other part of it is how to get rid of the toxin.
Right.
That we relied on into the ground doesn't mean that it goes away. So part of the rain garden for us, it had to deal with cleaning it before it getting back into the water table so that we don't deliver something dirty.
Right.
And so phytoremediation is a very important thing for us. So when we built the rain garden in Kailua, we made sure we collect the water and put in known phytoremediating plants to clean the water before it infiltrates.
So all the roots from the plants begin to suck up the toxins, hopefully before they get back down into the ground and into the groundwater.
Right.
And so there's a very complex business of figuring out what
Yeah.
plants are best at doing that, right?
Yes. So part of that, we want to study our native trees and native plants for many reasons. Because they grow best here. They were native. When we introduced everybody foreign plants, we had to have irrigations and we had to keep them alive and deal with them. And then they also permanently change our soil because they were from somewhere else. And when we brought them in, they changed the bacteria and or microorganisms in the soil. So the native plants no longer can live there. So we did a soil test, and then we actually need to change the soil in Kailua back to native soil. And then we put native plants in. But we have a two-tier system we want to study. We want the herbaceous. Everybody in rain garden use herbaceous plants, and the first 6-8 inches of the soil is very important. And then we use trees as well. So we want to have the trees get a chance at the water at a further depth, and also help to provide shade and evapotranspiration, increase the evapotranspiration. When we change our surface area to more impermeable environment, we have changed the evapotranspiration percentage from 40-50% down to 20%. We actually reduce our systemic recycling to the atmosphere. And then we also allow more water runoff. So like you said, Ethan, the groundwater is not being recharged. We get rid of it quickly, and then we don't put it up in the air.
Right, so this is great, and we're gonna follow up on this when we come back. Right now, we have to take a little break.
Okay.
You're here with us on Likeable Science. I'm Ethan Allen, Wei Li, Ben Chutaro, Ted Ralston, all here talking about water wisdom, how we use water. We'll be back in a minute.
Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I'm fortunate to be able to host Sustainable Hawaii at ThinkTechHawaii.com. I hope you'll join in with us every Tuesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. to see the interesting people we have to share with you their information. Aloha.
Aloha! Hello, my name is Patrick Bratton. I'm host at Global Connections here at ThinkTech Hawaii. We broadcast live every Thursday at 1 p.m. We bring Hawaii to the world and the world to Hawaii, talking about international events and various things of interest to the audience. Please join me. I look forward to talking with you and having you get to meet some of my guests. Aloha.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. I am Anu Hittel, and I host a show on climate change. It's called Climate Change Beyond Outrage, and in it, we go beyond outrage to look at solutions to global climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. Join me every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha, namaskar, and goodbye.
Show. We spent half an hour afterwards in the hallway.
And we're back here on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen, here on ThinkTech Hawaii on a Friday afternoon. And we're talking about water, one of my favorite subjects. I'm here with Wei Li,
Hi.
Ben Chutaro, and Ted Ralston from another ThinkTech show. We've been talking about rain gardens in particular, and again, nice sort of simple and yet subtly complex technology to really help restore our island water system. It's a whole, the concept of a water cycle is a very critical one. Water evaporates, it condenses, it precipitates out, sinks into the ground and runs out. And when we put a layer of pavement on the ground, that disrupts part of that cycle. And rain gardens, by breaking up the pavement and giving places for the water to sink back into the ground, really help restore that cycle, and it's critical. And you've been talking about some marshes in Kailua. Are there other areas where you've been building rain gardens where you think they need to be built? Where you want to see them built?
Yeah, because we would like to see more rain garden being used throughout the state to remediate to mitigate all our impervious surfaces. And especially, you heard the project with the Alawite project, trying to deal with the a 100-year flood rainstorm, and so we contacted the folks there, and they said, it makes sense. Instead of building this large infrastructure, expecting the rainstorm like in Ralston, where we can put many of these rain gardens in, it reduces the impact, and it takes care of the first flush, and as well as mitigate the current recharging our watering system. Right now, we're collecting them and put in the LOI.
Right.
So we see it many uses in throughout our state.
Right, so ideally there'd be lots of rain gardens along all the sort of drainage areas.
Right.
So it would sort of buffer the flow of water instead of just rushing into the streams, rushing down the LOI and flowing away. It would pool in these areas, sink in slowly, filter more gradually, and the
Right.
toxins would be.
The funny part of this is we actually learned this from the Hawaiians. The Ahupua'a concept, where they had fallow fields, and as the water coming down to it, it's a very similar idea. And they use fallow field to detoxify, to make food, and we would like to use more rain garden to detoxify the water, phytoremediate, and bring it back out, and back into the more natural process. We're not against development. We think developments are great and fine. But we need to take care of the environment at the same time.
And if I can ask a question about that, I've been intrigued by knowing Wei for a couple of years, and that system thinking you possess and you express so nicely is so logical, but it's so misunderstood perhaps, or it's not applied from a policy perspective. I mean, we know about Kailapulu and Kailua. Joe Powell ripped that apart 50 years ago, turned it into Enchanted Lakes, and it's what it is now. We know about Hamakua, we know about Kawainui. We don't seem to have any policy that's understood at the government level that prevents that sort of thing from happening, or has some way to correct it once it has occurred. Hawaii Kai would be about the same time period, about 50 years ago or so.
Right.
And so where is there somebody in leadership role in government who understands that and can articulate and get his peers to back him? Where's the answer?
Very good question, Ted. I think some part of it has to be education to the political leader as well as us. We are the one that need to demand that in a way. So for years and years, we have no way to know this is happening.
Correct.
And now it start happening. And I think this is great, so you showed, and this is important to bring this kind of questions up. Because right now, for example, not until 4 years ago, we have no idea where our trees' canopies are. It's nothing against our state. It's just so difficult. The task is so enormous. How many trees do we have?
That's right. You were involved in a project measuring canopy cover over 250 square miles south of Oahu. I mean, that's just basic information that you really got to have to know how your island's going to function as an ecosystem.
And how it's changing as time goes on.
Yeah.
And you guys would be even more sensitive to that.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I mean, the Marshall Islands, Madro, again, urbanization, I mean, this is something that, what you're talking about is something we need to learn, because again, like I said, 25% of our water supply comes from that lens. So if we're not careful on how we do our infrastructure, how the zoning is taken into consideration, I mean, we could very well destroy the very thing that we depend on. I'm not sure about the state of Hawaii if they are relying on lens water, but we certainly do, especially during the drought months. Right now, especially in El Nino.
Right. We have in Hawaii, because of course we're a high island, we have a lot more water, and much of it is stored actually above sea level in geological formations, which is a good thing. Although it's remarkable when you talk to hydrologists and geologists, they all sort of say, we really don't know how much water there is. Nobody understands how big the pockets are, where the boundaries are, how they're sort of set up, where they're draining. Nobody. On Montreux, it's pretty well known because it's a pretty flat little thin waterland.
And what we're observing in the Marshall Islands as well is saltwater intrusion. So this is an issue with climate change and sea level rise. So some places in the Marshall Islands where normally, historically, where wells are pretty fresh, are no longer the case. So we're a double whammy. It's also we have to deal with urban issues, but then again, we also have to deal with another issue, and that is climate change. And so smokes. This is really making it far more complex for us.
So resilience and sustainability and disaster operations need to understand this very carefully.
Right.
And once again, the policy question. I just don't know. I'm not asking the question to be a wise guy. I'm just wondering where that level of understanding exists in national or global or island level governments, and how we can take this story to them.
You're quite right. I mean, it's a big and classic example of a systems problem.
Exactly.
It's a very complex system of our whole weather systems, our climate systems, our earth systems, our water systems, and our people systems all tying together. And everyone has their own little slice of it, and typically don't talk very much to one another. And we need to really bring those people into a room together to sit down, understand the common nature of the problem. I mean, the Marshall Islands have their issues, and we could learn a lot for the coast, particularly of Hawaii, where we do face those same kind of issues. On the coast, they start pumping up the aquifers, and sure enough, they get saline intrusion. We don't have you don't have the mountain areas, but everyone's got bits and pieces of the issue, and we're sort of like the classic apocryphal story of the blind man and the elephant, right?
I mean, the narrative is you look at the Marshalls, you're thinking waves, you're thinking storms, but the real threat is water security. Once those wells start getting intrusion from the seawater, then life itself is going to be quite difficult. And so that's the first. I mean, in many ways, the Marshall Islands is a barometer of what the climate is going to be happening in the world.
Yeah, but it's not constrained to the Marshalls or even the Pacific Islands. That there's the Arabian aquifer, which underlies much of the Middle East, serves at this point about 6 million people. No one has any real sense about how much water it holds, what its capacity is, or when it's going to suddenly go sucking dry. But when it does, there's going to be 6 million people with no real supply of water who have historically not gotten along very well together. And when they run out of water, it's not going to be funny,
No.
Well, back on that favorite subject, the policy issue of bureaucracy is designed to separate things into little pockets so that you can manage them and control them. But that loses the accumulation up to a higher level state of some kind, where the issues such as we're speaking of now are unmanageable, in the sense that there's no one person in charge of managing water. Here in Hawaii, we have people in charge of water quality. Different people are in charge of water flow and water distribution, and I don't think they necessarily know who each other are.
That's intriguing. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. Bureaucracy is almost the antithesis of
Exactly.
ecology.
Yeah.
Ecology says we look at all these things together, and bureaucracy says yes, we put them all in their separate little boxes so we can deal with them.
That's correct. We deal with them, nicely, the budgets and things like that, and jobs and assignments and charts on the wall that say you've got some degree somewhere or something like that. But there's no place that pulls it all together.
Right.
So collectively, you have that that right in your face, and we have it not far away. And water is interesting. It's the common denominator to all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so. Then I mean, the question sort of is, where do we go from here? How do we? What can we as individuals do, individually and collectively, through ourselves, through what groups we belong to, through our organizations, to help at least start that kind of conversation?
Let me ask a question to characterize that. I think I've been thinking about this ever since I met Wei and did some work for him a couple of years ago, trying to get the basic parameters about what we're going to go do in the Kailua situation. Hamakua is fed by probably 5 or 10 square miles of drainage altogether, I would guess. Kauai Nui is fed by 25 square miles of drainage. You got all of Manawili, you got all of parts of Kailua, parts of Kaneohe even drain into that bottomland. So we've got, how many rain gardens of the scope and type you're speaking of, which are 1,000 square feet or so, would it take to fix the water situation in Hamakua and in Kauai Nui? I don't know how to think about that or calculate that or approach that. That's a lot of streets, a lot of rooftops, a lot of animal droppings and such, and a lot of fertilizer and a lot of crankcase oil, and every now and then an illegal discharge into the streams. So the one rain garden looks like such a small piece of the solution space.
I tell you, you've given Wei a very complex
I know.
question.
Sorry, Wei.
Not at all.
And therefore, we're going to give him a minute to think about that while we take another
1 minute,
break.
Wei, that's all you get.
Okay, thank you.
Wei Li, Ben Chutaro, Ted Ralston, all talking about water here on Likeable Science. We'll be right back in a minute.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, and one of our delights is to be partnered with ThinkTech Hawaii and produce programs every week. Every Monday at 2 o'clock, we have a show called E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. So we bring people from all across the nation and the country, and certainly throughout the islands together here to talk with them about how to work together, and how to work together to do the following: to build a better economy, a better government, a better society. So if you're interested in the research of our think tank, the Grassroot Institute, or if you're interested in how that's applied at the governmental and community and business levels, you'll enjoy the fascinating conversations with our guests on E Hana Kako every week on ThinkTech Hawaii at 2 o'clock on Mondays. Until our next show, I'll see you. Aloha.
And we're back here on ThinkTech Hawaii, Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. With me today in the ThinkTech studios are Ted Ralston, Ben Chutaro, and Wei Li. And we're talking about water issues on islands, water gardens in particular, as an interesting strategy. Right before the break, Ted had asked Wei a very complex question about how many water gardens, how much water garden capacity would be needed just in the Kailua area to really sort of help buffer and neutralize the
And
solution.
you kindly gave him 1 minute to think up the answer. I appreciate that, Ethan, very much.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Ted, for the question. It's a very, very good question. It's funny part of that is, intriguing part of it is calculable. And it can be, we have the technology and we have the data. But the real issue that, like you brought up before, is there is no will and no resources or money to do that. We know exactly where all the impervious surfaces are in Kailua, or actually 250 square miles of southern Oahu.
How many
We
square
know
miles?
250 square miles from, I think, Kapolei all the way to Kaneohe. We know where they are, and we know how big they are. And it would be funny, we actually know how the water will drain, actually, because we had the LiDAR, we know the hydrology on each parcel. But who would fund to do such study? So now we did an example in American Savings Bank, so we know we are taking care of this many square feet of the property, and we are holding back 1,500 gallons of rainwater. That's the combined capacity of all the rain gardens that we have implemented, and it infiltrates 1 inch water an hour. So, 12 inches an hour, excuse me. So we know how much water we will process. So all that is in mathematics. It just, we have to will and do it.
But yeah, Ben, and it's doable, as you say, and if you think about it for a single building or an apartment complex or a hotel or a development even can do it. But how do you then start doing, particularly when it's retrofitting, how do you do around a big highway complex with interchanges and on-ramps and off-ramps? How do you go?
DOT and the highway have a lot of they have done a lot of this work, and they kudos to them. It's really the people, you, me, and the homeowners. We're the one, the major contributor. So I think Huikolaupoko in Kailua, they are doing a lot of rain gardens, and they're also retrofitting many commercial areas as well. So the effort, and it's gaining momentum. The city is interested that we're working with DFM, DUF, as well as the DPP about doing rain gardens in public areas.
Okay.
So it's happening.
Yeah, and sometimes it can just be a simple policy switch can really make a big difference. So years ago in Bermuda, they realized they had a chronic water shortage problem. They made it in their building code. They said every building must gather the water that falls on that building and must store it in a cistern. You cannot build a building without that. Small house, big building, does not matter. Everyone must have that. And now all the buildings in Bermuda are built that way, which is a matter of course. And they save a lot of water that way. If we could think about, yes, okay, should we do something like that? Say all new construction in Honolulu must involve.
Well, think of it this way. I mean, we're faced with the same problem in the Marshall Islands in the sense that it costs millions of dollars to build new reservoirs as opposed to having households have their own 1,500-gallon water tank. So again, it's also economics. I mean, if you look at the cost to build multi-million-dollar infrastructure, and you're absolutely right about the individual level. I mean, we have individual responsibilities, and in our case, just because we have to do it, it makes sense. I mean, really, it's really helped.
Yeah, and it's nice in a way because it brings a more personal note to it. Everyone begins to understand what happens to the water. It's actually a good lesson for kids growing up to realize, oh yeah, the water, we see it falling on the house roof, it runs in the gutters, it collects here in the tank.
Maybe we start at the
dribbles
schools,
out
actually
here.
do the physical modification at the schools, and make a big deal of it. Here's the rain garden, the kids are part of that, they grow things in it.
But also as a conservation, I go out in the tank, hey, girls, it's a quarter full. I mean, that's it. Whereas the city tap, you just turn it on. You don't think what the level is back on the reservoir. For us, I mean, we tap on the tank as it's half or 3/4 or 3/3. I mean 2/3 and whatnot.
There are measures.
So we're able to. Okay, we're not going to do the washing of the car this week.
Right. Yeah, I was actually talking to a person out in the Marshalls who had a plan with very simple little float valve kind of things to gather that data on an island-wide basis so that the government could look and say, okay, guys, it's time now for everyone to go to level 1 of conservation or go to level 2 or whatever, And so some of this, I don't really think some of it is intractable. It is a matter more of having creative, innovative solutions that are are socially acceptable. People aren't going to, it's not going to make everyone jump through a lot of hoops to do it. Just, well, you have to do one extra step each day. Yes, you've got to go out and check your water tank level.
You just find a job as a navigator. A navigator working his way through all these tough seas. To use a Polynesian metaphor.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's so they were certainly the Polynesians navigating in the boats between the islands had very much this problem. They had very limited water supplies, and they
way at the very beginning of the conversation brought in the management concept, and we haven't developed that thought much here. But maybe there is something that can be captured there and bottled and brought forward.
That's possible. We always respect the local Hawaiian, the wisdom they have and instilled in us, and it just, in the name of progress, we know better, but now we know they know better. So it's a great learning.
It's one of the wonderful things material scientists are finding. Right, they spent years designing materials, and more now. They look at nature and they say, how did nature solve this problem? Well, let's try to build something like that, and they build. Now they've got the gecko feed adhesive. They've got the underwater adhesives that the mussels use. But they've done it by watching how nature face these same challenges.
Or even culturally, I mean, look at my country. We call it mo. In the Polynesian area, they call it taboo. I mean, these concepts are not new. Right. They've been around for thousands of years. So every time we talk about conservation in the Marshall Islands, I say, these are not new concepts. Right. Our ancestors have been dealing with this issue with scarcity of resources from the very get-go.
Sure.
We just forgotten about a little bit of how we were doing it back then. So now you're right. I mean, it's about all of a sudden it's like the old become new.
Well, that's really interesting because you can take that contextual background and look at it in the current situation of progressive urbanization and see how those old guidances are modified or brought forward, or are they destroyed by the process of urbanization. Maybe there's something we can learn from you in that context. It sounds like a grand opportunity.
Exactly. The building that synthesis of sort of traditional wisdom of native cultures and modern Western science, and sort of saying, what can each teach one another? What can we learn from one another? And let's get the best out of both, and because we need all the help we can get these days.
You know, we have an organization called PRIMO, the Pacific
Risk Management Ohana.
Management Ohana. Are you familiar with that, with PRIMO?
I've heard, yeah.
We just had the conference a month ago here. It takes pretty much a lot of the Pacific Rim and Pacific Islands get together and talk about these common issues. It would be interesting to take this problem to Carl Kim, who's going to be running PRIMO from this point forward, and think of stimulating a bunch of discussion over the next year and have a session on just this subject at March of next year when PRIMO
I like it.
17 shows up.
Good.
And then Ethan can write grants against that, and people can go off and do work. Install that thinking in the schools, in the teachers first, I guess, and then the schools, and then get physical structure built out in the schools. That's the way to get the kids.
Yeah, you do have to start.
I mean, when you're even a small kid time when Kailapulu was being destroyed, and as I was a small kid there in Kailua, you just knew this wasn't right.
Right.
Big gigantic pipes taking sand from Kailua Beach in to do the landfill inside Kailapulu. It just didn't look right, you know. And you could also tell that nobody was thinking about it very much from a systems perspective. It was just take care of me right now, take care of my interests, and then worry about something else downstream. Right now we got that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting mix of, as you say, the old and the new. So there's now new water purification technologies on the market that involve a silver-infused porous ceramic tablet that you drop into a carboy of water. A few hours later, the silver ions have diffused, killed off all the microbes.
Silverdine or
These are called Medi drops, actually, and you can then drink that water, fill up 5 more gallons the next day, drink that water, you know, and do that for 6 months off of one of these tablets that costs about $5. So I mean, it's cheap. It doesn't add any cost. It doesn't add any taste to the water. It should be sort of culturally acceptable to almost any group.
If I can interject on that, something that just makes me think that sort of thing, as much as it makes it useful at this moment, it continues to destroy that fabric of systems thinking that prevents that situation from occurring at all. So 50 years from now, when we discover some downside of that silver treatment, we'll say, oh, now what do we got? Everybody's full of silver. It's not working. It's like full of lead or something like that. So, you know, avoiding those downstream consequences, those unanticipated consequences, that is another thing we have to think about.
Yeah, there is. I mean, we make the joke about using solar disinfection of water in emergency situations. So, well, you can drink the dirty water today and know that you'll be sick tomorrow, or you can put your bottle out in the sun and let it sit there for a day. And yes, something probably has leached out of the plastic and is in the water. That might, 20 years down the road, do you a little harm, but you probably aren't going to be sick tomorrow from your water then. And it is a trade-off. I mean, there are no absolute right, wrong, yes, this is the best, this is the worst. So much of science, particularly when you get into complex social issues, is a nuanced approach.
So we have a complex adaptive problem. That's what we're dealing with here.
Absolutely.
And it probably isn't the same coloration in various places.
Right.
And your islands is different from what it is here, different from what it is maybe in areas like in Indonesia, where there's even more imminent threats. So turning this into a system solution, recognizing it's a systematic problem, would be something we need a leader and a navigator to take us through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that you, Ethan?
I don't know, but yes, Kosher Eye, for instance, faces very different issues than does Yap in terms of their water issues. Hawaii here, we face very different issues in the Marshalls. I mean, there are common parts to it, but our approaches have to take into account our cultural differences, the topographical differences, the hydrological differences, and all. This has been a wonderful conversation. We've just really scratched the surface. I hope to get one or several of you back later on Likeable Science, and we can talk about this some more. Okay. But at this point, we're going to have to wrap up. I thank you all, Whaley, Ben Chutaro, Ted Ralston, for sharing your water wisdom with us on Likeable Science this week, and I hope our audience will come back and join us again next week. Aloha to you all.
Aloha. Thank you.
You're watching ThinkTech Hawaii, Hawaii's leading digital media platform for civic engagement, raising public awareness on tech, energy diversification, and globalism. Great content for Hawaii from ThinkTech.
Hi everybody, I'm IC Davidson. Thanks for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. One of the things that we try to do here is promote civic engagement. How do we do that? We put on shows weekdays from 12 to 5 p.m. We let people in our world on Facebook and all the social media. Today I'd like to talk to you about another way that you can engage us here at ThinkTech Hawaii and help us promote civic engagement here in Hawaii. What you do is you get on Twitter, you follow us at ThinkTechHI, and during the day, between weekdays between 12 and 5 p.m., you can interact with each of our live shows. What does that mean? You can send us questions, comments, thoughts, experiences, anything. All you have to do is mention us on Twitter. We'll see it here in the studio, and our hosts and guests will address them accordingly. This is a big thing for us. We want to hear from you. The conversation doesn't start here when our show ends. It ends when everybody gets their say. Join us weekdays, 12 to 5 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com. Join in the conversations live with Twitter, at ThinkTechHI. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support. See you soon.
You're watching ThinkTech Hawaii, 25 talk shows by 25 dedicated hosts every week, helping us to explore and understand the issues and events in and affecting our state. Great content for Hawaii from ThinkTech.
Aloha, how you doing? I'm Gordo the Tech Czar, here on ThinkTech Hawaii, where we co-host Hibachi Talk, where we talk about technology and bring in all kinds of cool guests. Also, my co-host with me today is
Andrew the security guy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching ThinkTech Hawaii, and thanks for watching Hibachi Talk. We also have Angus.
And you there, lad. It's Angus. I bring in all kinds of wee things. Oh, look, you see my lips moving.
Aloha, my name is Reg Baker, and I'm the host of Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. Business in Hawaii is a program that is positive stories about business in Hawaii. We're tired of hearing the negativity and why it's the wrong place to have a business. We talk about the positive reasons for having a business in Hawaii and how to be successful. We broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, host of Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii. Come join us every Friday at 2 p.m. when I interview interesting scientists about what they do, why they do it, and why we should all care about it. It's a lot of fun to see. And you can learn interesting stuff. You'll hear all kinds of fascinating science, and we know you'll have a great time. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.